In the age of ancients, the world was unformed, shrouded by fog.
When Dark Souls was released in 2011, it started something. It was the game that made famous the subgenre of games that are referred to as soulslike games.
But then there was fire, and with fire came disparity, heat and cold.
Dark Souls was what started an exponential growth in popularity for its developers, From Software. After releasing hit games like Dark Souls 3, Bloodborne and Sekiro, finally they released what it felt like was one of the most anticipated games of all time, Elden Ring. So, why am I talking about all of this? Hi, my name is Lamp. In 2013 I just started high school and I was getting really bored of video games. I am not exaggerating when I say that without Dark Souls I might not be here. I'm not saying that I will be dead, of course. What I'm trying to say is that I may have gotten into another path, other than programming otherwise. I know this is a long intro, but I felt like it was really important for giving some context about how I feel about this project. For now, this is just a prototype, but at some point in the future it will become a game. So for this video I focused on movement and AI. This is the first time I ever worked on an AI, and I have implemented just a small part of the movement and the combat system. I might do a second part at some point in the future. When it comes to combat and movement, I implemented running, rolling, blocking attacks and light and heavy attacks. So I started by looking on Mixamo for a model for the player and some animations to go with it. I implemented a really simple movement using the character controller. Then I added the control for the camera with mouse or with the right stick on your joystick. I made it so the camera will try to follow you at a certain distance. Then I added the roll. This didn't cause any trouble at all, as you can see. Oh, and of course, I made it so that when you start rolling, you at some point gain some high frame, which means that you are invincible for some time when you're rolling, so an enemy that's attacking you won't hit you. I then added a test enemy. You don't want to face this guy in a combat. Then I implemented the attack, to be more precise, light attack. When I implemented attack, I realized that I needed a way to check if the player already hit with that attack the enemy, because otherwise it will just one-shot, because every frame it will add damage to the enemy. At first I used an ID system. Basically a code was generated to identify the attack, and if an attack already hit with that ID, it won't count. Then I thought a bit about this and realized that it was really dumb what I was trying to do. So I achieved the same thing in a smarter way, which is just that when the player is attacking, during the attack it creates a list that contains all the enemies that were hit. This is for scalability. In this demo there is only one enemy, so you actually don't need it. This was done for scalability. if in the future I'll have a combat with more than one enemy, it won't give problem that way. I implemented the attack in a pretty smart way. Basically, at some point of the attack, when you swing the weapon, it will actually start dealing damage. To check when that happens, it is done through animation event. Basically, the animation contains events that are called at some point in the animation, and that calls a function in the player script. One cool thing I did is that this function, when called, is also given an object, a scriptable object containing the data for the attack, so how much time it gives damage for, and how much damage, and the area of the attack. So you can have more different attacks in the future with maybe different weapons that gives different damage, etc. To check if the enemy is inside the area of the attack, I used a method called physics.overlapCapsule. This, as you can tell by the name, creates a capsule and checks if something is inside it, basically, and returns every collider that was hit by the attack. This is done inside a coroutine that runs for the time that is defined in the scriptable object of the attack. Then I added also heavy attacks, which is basically the same as light attacks, but of course with different animations, and also using a different scriptable object. Then I added the block. This is done through a boolean. This boolean becomes true when the shield is fully up. That way you need to have a bit of prediction. You can do it at the last moment to block attack, so it is a bit strategic when the boolean is true. And if you're facing the enemy, because if you're giving your back to the enemy and you have your shield on, you will be hit anyway, because the shield is not actually covering you. At this point I thought that I needed to add a UI for the life and the stamina of the player. This is done using a slider. Then I also added workspace UI with the life of the enemy, which is basically done the same way as the player. Then I went to Mixamo again and I downloaded a model for the enemy. Here's some nightmare material for you. And then it was finally time to start working on the AI. The enemy works in a really similar fashion to the player. It also uses the same animations and calls similar functions to what the player calls when it rolls and swings the weapon, etc. As I've explained before in the combat section of the video. I've made it so that the AI is kinda scalable. It works through values that determines how effective, for example, the roll is, or the amount of distance it tries to keep to the player, and also the ratio between light attacks and heavy attacks, because usually when you play a soulslike game, you tend to use light attacks more, so you can change the value to use more light attacks or more heavy attacks, depending on the enemy you want to create. I made it so that if the enemy is near enough the player, it will try to attack. And if the enemy is near the player when he is attacking, he will try to roll, using the roll chance that I talked about before. Then I added the Death UI. This is really close to what you will find in the Souls series. Then I added the ragdoll when you die. This is kinda funny and this is something that is present in all the Souls games as well. Then I added sounds, nothing major, just sound for walking and swinging your weapon. Then I created a test map. This was done for you guys, so that you can test the prototype. It will be on my itch.io page. It is kinda heavy, so if you have an old laptop, you can forget playing that. Sorry about that. Then I created a shader for the grass to make it swing in the wind, and did some general bug fixing, and yeah, it is done. So this is the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe to the channel. It will help me a lot with motivation and, keep making videos. and I really appreciate that. So please like and subscribe, and I hopefully will see you in the next one.